Okay, so we're diving into cybersecurity today.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and we've got these excerpts from a couple of Professor Mack Jackson Jr.'s books,
Okay.
Cybersecurity Basics for Non-Techies, and The Ultimate Guide to Password Security.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
Have you had a chance to look at them at all?
Yeah, I've skimmed them. I think they're great starting points for sure.
Yeah, he's got some really good points, and they're written in a way that I think is really accessible.
Definitely.
So hopefully we can kind of like unpack some of these things.
Totally. And his work is just, it's fascinating because he gets it.
Yeah.
He really gets that cybersecurity. It's not just about the firewalls and antivirus software. It's about people.
Hmm.
It's about understanding like the human element, you
Yeah.
know, how we interact with technology, where we're vulnerable, and just how to make smarter choices, honestly.
Yeah, totally. Like we're all part of this ecosystem.
Exactly.
And we need to be aware of the risks out there.
Precisely. And the risks are real, like they're significant. And Professor Jackson, he cites this U.S. Justice Department report.
Okay.
And get this, it says that cybercrime jumped by almost 40% in the last year alone.
40%, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a big jump.
Wow. Okay, so that just highlights how important this really is.
Absolutely. And it's not even just about protecting ourselves, but our workplaces too.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Professor Jackson, he uses these really interesting case studies in the book, like examples of major data breaches.
Right, right. Like that Capital One breach.
Exactly, back in 2019.
Yeah, over 100 million customers' data was compromised.
I know. So security numbers, bank account details, like everything.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary reminder that even these massive corporations with all these elaborate security systems in place, I mean, they're still vulnerable.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there was that MGM Resorts breach. I think it was 2020.
Oh, yeah, that was a bad one.
Millions of guests, all their personal information just like up for sale on the dark web.
It's scary how easy it is for that stuff to get out there.
It really is, and it makes you wonder, like, what went wrong in these situations?
Right. You'd think they would have, top-notch security.
Exactly.
But what's interesting? In both those cases, it wasn't like some super complex hacking operation,
Really?
Yeah, with these surprisingly simple oversights, like Capital One, they had a misconfigured firewall. And MGM Resorts, it was an unsecured cloud server.
It's crazy how these little things, these human errors,
Why no?
can create such huge vulnerabilities.
Totally. But it's not always technical weaknesses that cyber criminals exploit,
Yeah.
Professor Jackson, he talks a lot about social engineering.
Oh, right, right.
It's like the art of manipulation, right?
Yeah.
It's like tricking people into just giving up their information.
It's crazy how easily, like, our trust or just our desire to help can be used against us.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like that CEO fraud scheme he talks
So
about.
tell me about that one.
So picture this. An attacker pretends to be the CEO, right?
Okay.
Sends this urgent email to someone in the finance department
Okay.
requesting like a large wire transfer.
Oh, no.
They play on that sense of urgency and authority,
Yeah, and people want to please the boss.
Exactly. And just like that, they're gone with a ton of company money.
Wow.
It's like a classic example of how social engineering can like totally bypass even the best security systems out there.
Because you're not hacking a system, you're hacking a person.
Exactly. You got it.
So these cyber threats are out there,
Yeah.
and we know they're using our human nature against us.
Right.
So, like, what can we actually do? What are the steps to protect ourselves?
Well, that's where Professor Jackson's Cybersecurity Basics for Non-Techies, I think, is super helpful.
Yeah.
He kind of lays out these practical steps, things anyone can do.
Okay.
And it all starts with the foundation, really. Passwords.
Okay. Which seems obvious enough.
Right. You would think so.
But apparently we're all walking around with, like, the digital equivalent of password 123 on all of our accounts.
It's true. Those stats he cites are kind of scary.
They are, yeah. So he suggests a totally different way of thinking about passwords.
Yeah.
He's a big fan of passphrases.
Yes. Much better.
So for those of us who aren't familiar, break down what a passphrase is and why it's better.
Sure. So think of it like a short sentence, something you can easily remember,
Okay.
but total gibberish to anyone else.
Okay.
So instead of password 123, you might use like green elephants love spicy pizza.
Okay. I like that.
Right.
Much more memorable.
Exactly. And way harder to crack.
So it's about like the length and the randomness.
Exactly. It makes it like exponentially harder for those brute force password cracking programs.
Okay. So longer, more random passphrases. Got it.
Exactly.
Now, he also talks about password managers, which I'll be honest, have always seemed a little, I don't know, techie for me.
I get that. They can seem intimidating.
Yeah.
But think of a password manager, like a digital vault, okay,
Mm.
for all your passphrases. And you just need to remember one super strong master password for that vault.
So it basically remembers all the really complicated stuff for me.
Exactly. Takes the pressure off.
Okay, that makes sense. But then what happens if someone gets that one master password?
Right. That's why Professor Jackson really emphasizes making that master passphrase like Fort Knox level secure.
Okay.
Like combination of random words, numbers, symbols, the whole 9 yards.
Got it. So the security within the vault is really important.
Absolutely.
Okay, now I have a confession.
Okay.
I might be guilty of using the same password for a few different sites.
Oh, no.
Okay, maybe more than a few.
Uh-oh.
But is that really that bad?
Okay. Professor Jackson uses this great analogy. He says it's like having the same lock
Okay.
on your front door, your car, and your office.
Oh.
If someone gets a key to one, they got them all.
Oh, okay. That's a really good point. I'm never doing that again.
It's a good visual, right?
It is. It is. Okay, so strong, unique passwords. Got it. But what about all those, like, phishing emails and those links that are like, I feel like I'm always dodging those.
Right, right. He talks about that too.
Yeah.
So even if an email looks legit, like it's from your bank or whatever,
Right.
always be wary about giving up personal info.
Oh, yeah. That's happened to me before, but I called my bank directly just to be sure.
That's exactly what you should do. He says always verify through official channels.
Okay.
Like don't click on any suspicious links or download anything you weren't expecting. Those can be bad news.
Right, with like malware and stuff.
Yeah, he describes malware like a digital virus, basically.
Yeah, so basically a digital virus. And speaking of malware, a keylogger is something that I've always found very unnerving.
Oh, yeah, it sounds so like spy movie-ish,
It does. It really does.
but it's a real thing.
So what it is, it's basically recording every keystroke you make.
Exactly.
So they could potentially be stealing really important information.
Yeah, passwords, credit card numbers, the works,
So someone could be digitally looking over my shoulder?
essentially, and they can be hard to detect.
Okay, so how do you even know if you have one?
That's why having good antivirus software is important.
Okay,
Professor Jackson says to think of it like your digital bodyguard.
I like that. Your own personal bodyguard.
Right.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So strong passwords, be wary of phishing, good antivirus software.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for the cybersecurity checklist?
Oh, two-factor authentication.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So you've seen this, right? Where you enter your password and then they send a code to your phone or email.
Yeah, like a second layer of security.
Exactly. So even if someone gets your password, they can't get in without that code.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, Professor Jackson's a big proponent of enabling that whenever you can.
Two-factor authentication. Got it.
There you go.
So those are all individual steps, but it feels like sometimes it's the companies that really drop the ball.
Right. Yeah.
Like that T-Mobile breach. How do those even happen on such a large scale?
Yeah, that T-Mobile thing was a huge wake-up call.
Mm-hmm.
And Professor Jackson says it really highlights these concerns about cloud security now. Right, because so much of our data isn't on our devices anymore.
Exactly. It's all stored remotely.
Yeah, and in their case, those servers just weren't secured properly.
It's like leaving your filing cabinet out in the open.
Totally. And Professor Jackson argues that as we rely more and more on these cloud services, businesses really need to step up their security in that area.
Yeah, for sure. So what can they do? Like, it seems kind of daunting.
Well, he points to something called a zero trust architecture.
Zero trust. So they don't trust anyone. What is that?
Well, it's more about removing assumptions, right? So
Okay.
traditionally, security was all about keeping the bad guys out, right?
Yeah.
Zero trust is like, okay, we're going to assume anyone trying to access the network, even from inside the company, could be a threat.
Okay, so like constant verification.
Exactly.
So even if you get past one layer, you're constantly having to prove who you are and why you're there.
Right, exactly. And it makes it much harder for attackers to move around within a network.
Oh, okay.
And Professor Jackson mentions this is becoming even more important now with the Internet of Things.
Oh, right, because it's not just our computers and phones anymore.
Exactly.
It's everything. Refrigerators, security cameras, even cars.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so we've covered phishing, malware, all that, but there's one more cyber threat I think that really freaks people out.
Oh, yeah, ransomware.
It's terrifying, so why is it so scary? Because it's not just stealing your data.
It's holding it hostage.
Yeah, it's like someone breaking into your house and just changing the locks.
Exactly. You got it. And Professor Jackson, he points out that paying the ransom doesn't even guarantee you'll get your data back.
So you could pay and still not even get what you need.
Exactly. It's a tough spot to be in.
It really is. And are you funding further criminal activity by giving in to those demands?
It's a dilemma. Right.
Huge dilemma. So if paying up isn't the solution, what can you do?
Backups, backups, backups.
Okay, so having that separate copy somewhere safe.
Exactly. Offline or in a secure cloud service could be a lifesaver.
Okay, and what about keeping your system updated? He talks about that a lot.
Right. Those updates include security patches.
Oh, so it's not just them being annoying.
Right. They're actually important. Like, think of it like fixing cracks in your armor.
Okay, because ransomware often exploits those vulnerabilities.
Exactly. So staying up to date, it's like an extra layer of protection.
It all comes back to layers, doesn't it? Like the more you have in place, the better. So we've covered so much in this deep dive. Like it's been a lot of information.
It really has.
But it's also empowering, to really understand these things.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power. Right.
Exactly. And as Professor Jackson says, it's a journey.
It is.
It's not like a one-time thing.
Yeah, you got to stay vigilant.
Yeah, just like anything else, it's about building good habits.
Totally.
So as you're continuing on your cybersecurity journey, think about what really resonated with you from Professor Jackson's work.
Yeah, good idea.
Where are your vulnerabilities, and what's one small step you can take today
I like that.
to be just a bit more secure? It's a journey, folks.
It really is.
Okay, that's it for today's deep dive on cybersecurity. We'll see you next time.
You can contact Professor Mack Jackson Jr. and his company Vanderson Cyber Group at www.vandersoncybergroup.com or call 702-868-0808.